Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Barbecue Roundtable. I'm Jason Hardy with EliteBBQ Smokers. Today's episode is going to be brought to you by Snake River Farms. We have a little code show up in a minute, so use that code and get 10% off all orders. Links down below, so make sure you check it out. But we got a good guest today. We have a lot of fun. All that being said, let's bring them up. Let's get this party started. So Thomas, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm wonderful. First off, thank you for coming on the show tonight. I appreciate it very much. Justin will be here in a little while, y'all. He's got some other stuff to take care of, so he'll be a little bit running behind, he said. But we still get the show on the road, because that's what it is. So we got the barbecue roundtable. So we kind of get started here, ask a few questions about kind of like your background, where you come from, and stuff. So one question I really love to start with here is, how did you get started in cooking? Did you cook as a young age, or kind of where did the passion for cooking and barbecue start at?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. Excited to be here. It was funny. You and I passed each other for just a split second, like up on the stage in Wise, and you were like, "Hey, you should come on the show." And I was like, "Oh, great. I haven't met you yet, but I'll find out who you are." And so I did a little like Facebook sleuthing to figure out who you were. And then I'm glad we got in touch with each other and I could join you. But I guess the short answer, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail, is I got started probably not unlike many people out there. I started kind of right at the tail end of the Pitmaster show being so popular, which is kind of what sparked my interest in the competition part of barbecue. But to go back a little further, I grew up in Northern California, where the weather's nice year round. And so as a kid and as a teenager and a young adult, I spent a ton of time outside cooking with my dad or my brothers or my friends. And we'd cook everything, all kinds of barbecue, all kinds of grilling. Santa Maria is real popular out there. So I've cooked a lot of tri-tip in the past. But that's kind of how I got introduced to outdoor cooking. And then I was actually living in Virginia at the time. This was around maybe 2013, 2014. Wife was out of town. She was back home visiting some friends in California. And I went to, I don't know, Lowe's or something and bought an old char griller offset. And I had that for about a year and a half, and kind of tinkered with it. And then that was about the time that, I got hooked on the TV show, and I went out and bought a WSM and started looking for a contest to enter. I thought, it looked like a lot of fun. I could probably do that. And entered the contest in DC, which was my first event in 2015. Yeah. And
that was baptized by fire.
Yeah, no kidding. Right. And I think we finished kind of middle of the pack in almost all four categories. Had a ton of fun, and pretty much right away I was like hooked. Like I was, I had this obsession. Like I had to learn how to do this. I had to learn how to become better. I wanted to hear my name called. I wanted to experience what I had seen on TV and what I'd heard about this, this world of competition barbecue. So that's how I got started.
So you would use the motto is, when you wipe out of town, it's better ask for forgiveness and permission, and then got a smoker at that time.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I think all of us have used that motto in the past.
Yeah.
But so you kind of went with a char grill, and then you say you went to Weber Smoky Mountain stuff here. The difference in that from starting out, going from a model that most people at home see, you see on the side of the road, you see people have them, it's because it's an introductory smoker. Going from that to Weber Smoky Mountain, what was the change that you seen as a new person going in there, as far as like, oh wow moment, or aha moment?
In jumping from a char griller to a WSM?
Yeah.
I think just the ability to manage the fire on the two models. A char griller, as great a product it is, like it's super hard to manage. And especially if you're, a beginner just getting started, sometimes it can be really frustrating because that fire can get out of control real quick. It can ruin your cooker. It can ruin your food. And so I think the ease with which you can manage the fire on a WSM was the most surprising thing to me when I made the switch from one to the other. Those baffles on the top and on the bottom, it's a really well-designed cooker. for anyone thinking about getting started in any kind of barbecue, not just competition barbecue, but cooking at home, cooking for friends. The WSM is really about as good as it gets for a first timer. You learn a lot about cooking on one of those pretty quick, and like I said, it's pretty easy to manage.
Yeah, and I was kind of building upon that is I think that truthfully speaking, a char grill is actually not a beginner's model. It shouldn't be a
True.
beginner's model. I think a lot of times people get that because think it's a beginner's model, but there's so much fire management, there's so much learning to do that. It's when you can't leave it. You got to sit there and watch it.
Yep.
And I think that kind of can get somebody new getting into cooking can kind of just kill the confidence, burn them out, whatever you want to call it, and therefore they don't continue on further because they didn't succeed at that. So, like you said, I think a Weber Smoky Mountain is a great introduction model because it's something that you can do, you can manage, you can go walk to the refrigerator and come back, and it's going to stay where it's at. And then you can do it. Now, I think a char grill kind of getting into that process once you start getting confidence. I think it's a fun little grill to cook on, but again,
Absolutely.
you can't walk away from it. And then that gives you a good area to get into the pellet smokers, the gateway drums, the stick burners, the outlaw smokers, and all these different smokers.
Yeah.
It's kind of a progression that we've taken into there. What units are you cooking on now at competition?
Actually, I just switched over to all gateways. I think I've done 3 contests this year on all drums. And before that, I was cooking on 2 Humphreys pints and 2 drums. I was doing ribs and pork on the Humphreys, and I was doing brisket and chicken on the drums. I've been doing brisket on the drums since probably halfway through 2019. I switched over to doing brisket on a drum, and then just this year started doing chicken on the drum.
So you're about the same thing with me. About 2019, I switched over from the stick burners to the drums. One of the biggest reasons for it is just traveling, just the weight of it. Stick burners are awesome, but they are very heavy and very hard to manage, move around and stuff. And I don't have a dedicated porch tray where everything's bolted in place. So that's kind of one of the reasons I went to the Gateway drums. But I've been very happy with the drums. I like them. I like the combination with the drums and the Red Tech smokers. Kind of be able to give me that smoke flavor on the back end with the sauce. So I've kind of like mixing that up a little bit. But you've done 3 of them. You got 1 GC on the drums. You can't argue them results.
Yeah, not bad. I think for me, part of the reason that I switched is like the Humphreys is such a good product. First of all, it's like I can't say enough about Chad and Nicole and how amazing those cookers are. But for me personally, it was just getting to the point where I was kind of setting and forgetting it, right? Like I was following my timeline to the minute. I knew that the cook temperature was going to be the exact same every cook. I didn't have to worry about it. And I felt like I was getting disconnected from the cook. I wasn't involved closely enough and engaged with what was going on inside that cooker to really understand whether or not my food was good or bad at the end of the cook. And so switching to the drum, that lid's open more often than not. And you're in there, you're spinning, you're turning, you're flipping, you're reading color, you're doing all those things. And I just felt, again, like a lot more connected to the cook. And like I had better control over what was going on. As weird as that sounds.
No, I think it's a good point because cooking on the drums, basically, for me, I've got something's going on every 15 minutes.
Yep.
So every 15 minutes, I'm rotating it, I'm flipping, I'm doing something every 15 minutes. And so when I go through, I look at the drums, I go through the progressions from start to finish. Even if I'm just taking a brisket, picking it up and rotating 180 degrees and putting it back to even out the cook process. So the whole time I'm doing this, like you said, you're able to kind of stay on top with it, and then you'll see the temperature gauge, and you'll be like, all right, this in here is kind of going too slow on me. I need to bring it back up.
Yep.
Or it's running away from me. I need to dial it back down. And just tricks to it to learn, like water pan placements. I knew everybody's got different techniques. Some people put it like me right there at the bottom. And some guys telling me, said, man, you just boiling all your water off too fast, and said you're killing yourself and need to bring it up. But again,
that's what's great about what we all do, though, because you do it a little bit different. I put all my water pans on the middle rack, but at the end of the day, like we're both getting to the point where we want, or we're getting our food to where we want. And so those little variations is what's so interesting about what we do.
Oh, it's truly amazing, just the little things we do. And we can do the same technique. And I can put my charcoal in my basket one way. Like for me, I put charcoal basket, I put the big pieces in the top and then had the
Mhm.
smaller pieces the big pieces in the bottom, and then fill it with smaller pieces coming up. Because I want to kind of get that initial smoke, get it going. And when it starts getting to the big logs while I'm cooking, I got that consistent
Constant
fire.
heat. Yeah. Yep.
And a lot of people just take the bags and pour it in and don't worry about that. And they do very successful with it. So it might just be one of the things that is it necessary or is it just something mind over matter?
Right.
And I think that's a lot of the process is kind of what are you comfortable with. And somebody starting out, even with Weber Smoky Mountain, again, find out what you're comfortable with. I would personally, with a Weber Smoky Mountain, if somebody getting out there and starting, I would actually start it with the briquettes
Yeah.
rather than doing the hardwood or lump. I would start with the briquettes. You put out more ash and it'll smoke more at the beginning, but you'll have a very consistent cook in there. And then you can start adding in your the lump in there. You can start adding in that for different flavors. But I would start off with the briquettes because again, start simple and then make it complicated.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think it's a really good key. So, like I said, you go into the drums. So, one question to kind of we talked about a little bit before the show is going from the West Coast to the East Coast. Now I live on the coast right here, Myrtle Beach, outside Myrtle Beach. So humidity is always a situation. But I noticed with me that early in the year, my temperatures are doing one thing, but as the humidity builds, it holds the heat down to the drums more, and
Mhm.
therefore it changes the cook as the summer goes through there. But you come from an area that, I mean, Northern California, if I'm not mistaken, is basically got no humidity to speak of,
Yeah.
to the East
Yeah.
Coast where you got more. Have you noticed anything like that?
Uh, no, and I think I have the benefit of having cooked in a lot of different parts. I mean, there's a lot of cooks out there who have cooked all over the country, but I started in Virginia and cooked there for 3.5 years, and then moved to California and cooked out there for 4 years. So I had the benefit of cooking in humid, very humid conditions in Northern Virginia, DC area, and then going out to the West Coast and cooking in, like you said, a very very dry uh, conditions and weather conditions out there. So in terms of like weather impact on the cook, I would say it was always pretty minimal. But again, I was cooking 3 meats in a Humphreys, which is fully insulated, and so I didn't really have to worry about the atmosphere outside the cooker because I knew that the atmosphere inside the cooker was exactly where I needed it to. I had my water pan in there. It was set at a very specific temperature. I had my rack position. I had the gurus on there, so it was all very well controlled inside the cook chamber for at least 3 of the meats. So I didn't really have to battle weather per se.
Now, have you always been cooking kind of 250 to 275, 300 range? Uh, you think it would be different if you're doing kind of a low and slow 200, 225?
Oh, I think for sure it would be different. So when I started out, like many people, I was doing low and slow overnight, lighting my fire at like 10:30 or maybe even
Yep.
earlier than that. I can't even remember, sleeping on the concrete and trying to manage that fire overnight for those big meats. But I think probably since 2017, maybe late 2017 is when I started cooking hot and fast. Anywhere between 290 and 310 depending on time, all those different things. But generally, I'm cooking right at 300 for everything.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of moved to a lot of us have moved to the hot and fast. Just for me, it's just so I can get sleep. I
Yeah.
think I think a lot of us took for granted of how important sleep was just in the finishing of the process. And I think when we started doing hot and fast and got that and we were able to introduce that into the equation, it really changed a lot of the results in there.
Yep.
But I mean,
100%.
I, I think also though, it's kind of got us to really pay attention because your window of air has gotten smaller. Whereas at low and slow,
Absolutely.
you can kind of go a little different with that. But with the window being so small with hot and fast, it's definitely something other to keep in mind going forward with that.
But the trade off is there, right? And actually, you
Yeah.
mentioned a couple of important things. So number one, like sleep and just overall, what I would call like self care during a competition is so important. Eating right, getting good sleep, not staying up and partying all night. Like those three things are so important. Like if partying is important to you, show up on Thursday, have your party on Thursday night, and then Friday, get to work and do what you need to do to be prepared for Saturday. But then on Saturday, when you're well rested, you're well fed, and you're focused, even though that window is smaller,
Yep.
You're more aware and able to deal with it than you would otherwise be if you were tired, not well rested, not well fed, and not able to kind of think through some of those things that might pop up during your cook.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, keeping it balanced. You've got to have,
Yep.
like I said, you got to be able to get. Also you need to get in your routine. If your routine is like with the drums with me, I like every one of my drums, and I get up in the morning, 5:30, whatever. I like all of them. I don't like my chicken drum later on. I like every one of them because it's just a routine. And then as soon as I shut that lid on them, we go do barbecue church. And then I walk around and say hey to a few people, and then I come back, and it's time to just get everything going and get rolling. But
Yep.
I've got that little time frame that I've got to get it. Everything's kind of working into that favor to get my routine going. If I don't follow that routine, it just kind of just gets a little bit wacky.
Yep. I think there's a balance in that too, though, because I mean, like you and like a lot of people, like I have a very, very specific process and timeline that I follow, and it's almost to the minute. But that only begins at a certain point. Like there's a little bit of flexibility early on in the cook, where and I think you have to allow yourself that flexibility because things aren't always going to go right, and you can't allow, damn, I lit my chicken drum 5 minutes too late. You can't allow that to disrupt the rest of your cook, the rest of the day. But I agree, like routine and following your process is important, but not to the point where you allow it to kind of get inside your own head.
Yeah, and I think that the other time, same time we're having that conversation, saying that we also need to take consideration and keep this in mind that this is a hobby.
Yep.
I think sometimes we forget that this is a hobby, and the truth is we're turning in food to 6 judges we never meet, and they may or may not agree with me. So we turn in good food and do the best we can, but at the end of the day, you still got to enjoy it. You still got to do it because we keep coming out here. I keep coming out for the people. I mean, so that's kind of leads into a good question. What is something that surprised you most about Competition BBQ? I know you said you've seen the shows, but kind of what surprised you most when you started getting into it that you brought away from this?
You mentioned it, and I think it's talked about a lot, but I still think it's underrated, and I think it's the people. I've crossed paths with people that I never would have otherwise, and they are some of the most trusted allies and friends that I have. Not only when it comes to sharing things about my personal life or my work life, but also about this great hobby that we have. I was just on the phone with Brett McKinney from BMAC and Barbecue the other night, and we talked for an hour about all different kinds of things. And like, I never would have met Brett if it were not for Competition BBQ. He lives in Southern California. He's a teacher. Like, our paths never would have crossed. And so I think it's the people that have been most surprising, but also the level of competition. And I think that's increased over the years with things like Barbecue Champion or Champs Academy or Barbecue League or things like that. Like, the accessibility of information and the learning curve has changed dramatically, and so it's made it much more competitive, which is a nice surprise in a way, because it means that newer entrants into this hobby have a much better opportunity to hear their name called, which is only going to help things grow and become bigger, which is a good thing for all of us.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the learning curve, when I started barbecue in 2010, there was nothing posted on Facebook, nothing posted on any social media about boxes, how they looked.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was just top secret information. Nobody was really sharing anything with nobody. And then Facebook started kind of getting to be, everybody had it. And then some people started posting pictures on there. And the next thing you know, you got groups having classes. Next thing you know, they sharing recipes. And then you got people even today is basically collaborating. I mean, there's teams out there,
Yeah.
several of them running the same recipes. But again, just because we cook the same recipe don't mean we get the same results. I mean, I can cook mine and your recipe. We both shared recipe, and it's going to cook different because it's a different piece of meat. The wind's blowing different. There's so many different factors in there. It's going to change. But again, the collaboration, the information out there is helping these new people become competitive in 5 months rather than 5 years.
Yep. And you mentioned, we could cook the same recipe and have a different result. It's amazing how different the results can be.
Yep.
There are many teams that I have shared recipes with, and you part of staying competitive and part of getting better is getting feedback from other cooks and talking to them about what they're doing, what I'm doing. But it's really amazing how we can cook either the same or very similar recipes and get a totally different result when we taste each other's food. That's probably one of the other things that surprises me about this. And I'm never, I guess I'm never not surprised when I taste another cook's food and how different it is from what I cook.
Oh, it's crazy because we're doing a state contest here in Wise, and I was cooking with Justin, who's a co-host on the show sometimes. I was cooking in his trailer. Basically, he was telling me what to do. Pretty much, he had to rub stuff, and we was doing a steak cook-off. I had done exactly what he said, and verbatim. And he cooked his first, and I put mine on second. Then we turned them in, and I ended up getting a 5th place, beating him, and doing the same recipes, and had a higher score. Could it be that I wasn't quite as heavy-handed with rub, or could it be that my steak rested a little bit, or could it be that where mine landed on that table at kind of in the 3 or 4 minutes after his got turned in, that it made that much difference in there? There's
Yeah.
no telling. I mean, it could be who you followed. But the thing about it is that's an example of the exact same thing, same steak, same everything, but different results. And that gets back to what we said. I mean, we can go over here and I can share information, share recipes, share the techniques, everything I'm doing, but you're going to sit there and not spin the chicken every 15 minutes, or not doing what I do every 15 minutes. So it's going to make it a little bit different results.
Right.
Now, again, for those out there that's not competition people, the results we're talking about is minor. I mean, I'm not talking about something other than going from salt to pepper. I'm talking about just a little bit of moisture in a piece of chicken. You bite it here, it's really juicy. You bite it 2 minutes later, it's a little bit drier. So it's very minute changes, and only obsessive people like ourselves in barbecue would even pick up on that. But it's just kind of what conversation we've had, and that relates to any business. It's just things that we deal with all the time.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's a great TNS. I see you done awesome out there, man. It was a blast to see you out there in competition there in Wise. No, Galax. You got your GC for that. That was awesome. It's good to see people to kind of get out there and compete and stuff here. Oh, we need to do a little pause here. So Bearded Monkey's on here. So first off, I want to say to the guys on the Barbecue USA show last night, Jason Singletary, Joseph Pusio, Frank Nagel, Bearded Monkey's here, Sweet Smoke Q crew. Congratulations, y'all. That was an awesome show. It's really good to see the show and see the friends and stuff we've made through barbecue on the big screen out there. So that was a good show. All y'all done amazing. So congratulations on that. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of the new Barbecue Pitmaster has been a barbecue USA show. I think it's kind of showcasing some of this information out there and showcasing competition barbecue, man. I think it's been really, really, really good to see. And it's really good to go ahead.
I was watching last night with my wife, and I like, the last 2 episodes, maybe they've really showcased some of the other side of competition barbecue, which I thought was really great. They show some of the sides, some of the ancillary stuff, some of the desserts and those kind of things. And I made a comment to my wife that competition barbecue cooks are probably some of the most underrated in terms of creativity when it comes to recipe creation, presentation. You walk around at some of these events on a Friday night and look at some of these ancillary stuff that people turn in, and these platters are gorgeous with the way they present the food. And then if you're lucky enough to taste some of them, they really go above and beyond, and it's really incredible what they're able to do.
Oh man, I think I think it's really cool, and just to see if you want to really get some minds blown, go to competition and just take pictures of the desserts everybody turns in.
Yes. The
I
desserts are
mean,
always the most outrageous when it comes to presentation.
yeah, I mean, just the desserts. You turn those desserts in, and you see everything's the effort put into desserts. It's just like, holy cow.
Yeah.
And I think that because of the way barbecue is, the competition side of it, the four meats, chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket, we've kind of dialed it down to a one bite challenge now, and we've taken some of the creativity out of mainly pork. Because porky, everybody used to do a full box, tubes, money muscles, bacon, chunks, everything in the world. But now I think we've gotten less and less and less in the box because of the fact is that, again, the competition's gotten so tight that you're basically figuring out what we're not. Don't put something in there that's going to hurt you.
Yep.
So we're only just putting stuff in there that's going to help us. And I think that's kind of been something that's changed in the last several years, and good or bad, I don't really know, but I think it's different than it used to be.
I think you should just cook what you're comfortable with. Like I still cook a full butt. It's a very small one. I trim it down, pretty small so that I can get a few in the drum. But I'll turn in whatever's good. I don't want to limit myself. I understand the approach of, I don't want to turn in anything that's going to hurt me, and I follow that as well. But I don't limit myself to, hey, I'm only going to turn in money muscle, or I'm only going to turn in bacon. Whatever's good. If it's good enough to go in the box, it's going to go in the box.
So Darren
Except burn
works on
ends.
except burn ends.
I haven't done burn ends since March 2019. I'll probably never do them again.
I cook them. I'll tell you why I cook them. Number one, I really love them.
Yeah.
Number two is I've never gotten a 180 in brisket without them in the box. Number three is LC beat me in Banjo BBQ a few years back, and his box was just burn ends. And I talked to him. And he said, "Man, the slices wasn't good. Burn ends were good, so I put burn ends in the box, and he beat me." So I'm always carrying it for backup or whatever. But I do think they cost us a higher place call at a contest earlier in the year that probably knocked us out of the game a little bit. But
yeah,
it's just it was a risk we took. They were good.
Yep.
We done it. We were proud of them. It didn't help us. But I think going back to the burn ends on that is basically 2019 was probably whenever a lot of this happened. About 2018, 2019, we really went from the shift from prime briskets to Wagyu briskets. Back during that time frame, we kind of, before that, I think we were still having a lot of primes that were being competitive and cooking barbecue. I think past 2019, it kind of went to being a lot of classes were taught. A lot of people were following different recipes. We really went into the Wagyu side of it. I don't think the burn ends of the Wagyus are as good as the primes, and I don't think they can be judged the same. But again, we can't tell judge what the difference is, so it's up to us to turn good in. But I think that a burn ends on the prime is better than burn ends on the Wagyu brisket, in my opinion.
I'd agree.
So I think that's kind of like you were saying, that's what happened with that situation. But that's just the way it is. So your team name you got is Mudville BBQ.
Yep.
So explain the history to Mudville BBQ.
Okay.
The name and stuff.
Yeah. So I mentioned I grew up in Northern California. I grew up in Stockton, which is about an hour south of Sacramento and about an hour and a half east of San Francisco. And one of the first names for the town when it was founded was Mudville. And so that's where the name Mudville BBQ comes from. It's really not that interesting of a story, but.
Well, so was it the Mudville back whenever it was at the gold mining area?
Yeah. Yep. That was during the gold rush era. Yep. Very good.
So you probably had a lot to do with the mud and stuff from doing all the mining and different times in the Washington Creek's out, and that's probably where the Mudville just came from.
Yep.
It was one of what they call it, shanty towns.
I'm sure it was a mess. Yep.
I think that was kind of I used to love watching westerns, and that's kind of where I took that reference from. But kind of an interesting story with that. So now your team, who all was on your team?
Yeah. Well, as of now, it's just me since I moved from California to Tennessee last year. But prior to that, it was Me and my brother Greg, who would cook at all the events with me when we were living in California. And then prior to that, when I was in Virginia, I would just find whoever could cook with me at the time. Back then, it was really important to have an extra set of hands. I've gotten to the point now where I can manage things on my own, and I've made things a lot easier on myself over the years in terms of cutting things out of my process or combining steps, or again, just making it more manageable, and trying to make it less complicated. The less complicated, the better. But as of right now, it's just me.
Well, cooking solo is I've done it a few times, and every now and then I like doing it, especially if I'm trying to get my head around a recipe or something other. But again, it's like you said, you get balance.
Yep.
You get somebody to cook you with. Back to that time, you're probably doing more low and slow, staying up all night. You want somebody at least to wake you up in the morning.
Right.
And me and my wife cook together, so it's a really good team for us to go out there and do that. So again, finding what's consistent with you, getting your routine, having somebody that if you want somebody to cook with you and you trust them, go for that. Galax, I teamed up with another buddy of mine, Jason Singletary, who was on the Barbecue USA show, and he done the MBN side of it and done very well with that. And we had a good time, and it was a lot of fun teaming up with other teams. I know several of them's done it over the years. So even if somebody out there, just come out there and do a contest. Y'all neither one's going to do, and team it together and do it together.
Yep.
I haven't
cooked with anybody before, but I'd love an opportunity to throw a drum in the truck and go cook under a tent and do ribs with somebody, and let them cook the other 2 or 3, or I do ribs and pork or something. I think that would be a lot of fun.
And it's a lot of fun just picking up on what somebody else is doing.
Yeah.
And same thing, man. It's going to go both ways. I mean, I say that it's got to be a two-way street.
100%.
If it's not a two-way street, then it's not going to be done again. But me and Jason were doing it, and we cooked, like I said, a very similar recipe in chicken, and tasted his chicken. I'm like, man, heck was you. Because it just was a more juicy chicken.
Yeah.
But we tasted my brisket, and he said the same thing with the brisket, and it's weird. But it's just the way it works with that. Carrie said you can come cook his pork. So first off, so like I said, the first time I'd even talked with you was on your stage, and I was kind of want to elaborate on this here. When somebody wins a GC, go to that person, shake their hand, tell them congratulations. Don't care if you know them, you don't know them. They've done something other. It may be their first, it may not be their first, but go up to them and tell them congratulations, because give that person that time to really enjoy that because it's been a big challenge for a lot of people to get there. Even somebody's won before, to get back to it's a challenge. So always take time when somebody wins a contest, go congratulate them. But
sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. But I do it every time.
Yeah, I know.
Every time.
And I know, me and you, like I said, you didn't know me from Adam's House Cat, and you won the contest when we shook your hand. Congratulations. And I was like, hey, come be on the show. And a buddy of mine said, man, I'll talk to a light pole, but that's just the way it works. I ain't scared to talk to nobody. But anyhow, I said congratulations to you out there at Wise. You won the contest and stuff. But that's not your first win.
It is not.
Because I was talking to somebody of mine after mine, and he was telling me about you. So you've got a pretty strong history of some good contests that you've walked away with GCs on.
I've won a few. I've been fortunate. We've won 5 in the 8 years we've been doing this. So we're, I think getting stronger and getting better every time we cook, and every time we go out and cook, we're trying to win. So yeah, we've been fortunate a couple times.
Now, but you got a big trophy from a big one, don't you?
I did. Yeah, it's sitting right over here on the floor in my office at home. It's a big square trophy from the American Royal.
So what is that like to get that trophy on that stage in that situation?
I
know you've been asked that question before.
I have been asked that question before. I'm trying to think if there's a better way to answer it, because I always feel like I don't give a good enough answer. The analogy that I always use, and I don't know if this is the right analogy or not, is the movie Tin Cup with Kevin Costner. So at the end of the movie, instead of hitting 12 balls into the water, if he would have nailed that first shot and won the tournament. That's what it was like for Mudville BBQ to win the American Royal. At the time, I'd only been cooking for 4 years. I think we'd cooked less than 25 contests. I won my first GC to get there, and then we win the invitational. So it was an underdog story. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can like put into words what it felt like. But that analogy is probably the closest I can get.
So when I'm looking at something on that and kind of thinking about it on the lines, the movie, same Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute, not the Field of Dreams. What's the movie he threw the perfect game? What's that baseball movie he threw the perfect? He was a pitching out there. Was it him?
The Natural?
Sorry, y'all. I don't remember the name of the movie.
I don't know.
Anyhow, the pitcher's out there. He's going through the whole process, and he's throwing a perfect game, and he don't even realize he's throwing a perfect game until later on the guy comes up to him and be like, "We got you. We'll take care of you. Just keep pitching the ball. The whole team will take care of you, and that pitching's a perfect game." And so did the cook whenever you're going through something like that, and some people's had a cooks, and I've had a couple where just everything was just like clockwork. Just everything was smooth. Everything went through the whole process. I turned the food in, and I was sitting back looking at it like, man, I wish I could do this every week. If I could do this every week, it would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But did the cook you kind of going into the Royal, was it kind of like that, or was it just kind of like just surprised that you were actually to that level?
I thought it was the best cook we had all year. I thought the food that we turned in was the best that I had ever done. The cook itself was generally, kind of as they all go. Like nothing really major happened. There were no, temps didn't run away on me. Things seemed to happen as they should, when they should. And I felt good turning things in, but the amount of teams in that event, like you never know what's going to happen. Actually, winning probably had more to do with Greg turning the boxes in than the cook itself. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
They it makes a difference turning them boxes in.
Yeah.
There's definitely a trick to the Royal turning boxes in that people's got different opinions on there, but you kind of got to go with your choices and make that happen because, like you said, that's an art to turn a box because it's different than any other competition you do. They put them boxes, they run it back. It ain't going to be table shuffles, anything else. There's just too many teams to do that.
Yep.
It's a whole different animal of competition when you got something of that scale and that size. But winning that contest, like I said, getting the opportunity to go up there. Now, what year was this?
That was 2019.
2019. So you go up there, you're able to succeed and win that trophy and come back. And I know your life probably had to be a whirlwind for the several weeks after that contest.
Yeah, I think we took a month off. We didn't get to go to the Jack that year. We took a month off, and then I went and cooked Indio in November. And I thought I had I thought I had a really good cook in Indio. And we got skunked. Like I don't think we didn't get a call. And then the following January, we went and cooked the Golden State Battle out in California, and I think maybe we got one call. Maybe we didn't get any calls, but I started to like question, like, am I ever going to win another grand championship? And even though I had only cooked 2 contests since the Royal, but you start to question yourself. And I think, 2020 obviously was COVID shortened year, but it wasn't until May, it was Memorial Day weekend, 2021, and we won Big Bear. So I went a long time without winning another GC, even though we cooked, a few contests, more than a few contests. Yeah. You start to question, am I ever going to win again? And I kind of had that feeling this year before we won in Wise.
It definitely starts. You definitely can be easy to start doubting yourself when you start doing good, trying hard, feel like you got good products, and you're just not getting results you're looking for, but you don't know which way to switch it, which way to change it. I think it can be very, very headbutting situation, trying to get out your head sometimes. And the truth is that sometimes you just gotta don't change the flavor, just change the texture.
Yep. Yeah.
I think right now, I think that the food we're turning in is way more tender than it was 3 years ago. Personally.
Mm-hmm. Definitely when I mean there's a huge difference in final texture depending on the cooker that you're using. Like if you're cooking on a stick burner, a Jambo, or an Outlaw, and I'm cooking on a drum, and somebody else is cooking on a Backwoods, and somebody else is cooking on a Deep South, the final texture that we're all putting in the box is all going to be different. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to score well. There's no right answer depending on the cooker. It's really, it goes back to what we've said several times tonight, like how different the final product is that we're all cooking, even though we're all kind of basically doing the same thing, cooking very similar recipes, cooking very similar techniques. It's all going to be a little bit different in the end. And it's amazing how everyone, all those different techniques and all those different finished products can end up doing very well.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. Now, you said you started out in Virginia, you went back to the West Coast, now you've come back to Tennessee. What's the biggest differences that you notice in the different areas you cooked in over the years?
This might surprise people, but in the Mid-Atlantic Barbecue Association, judges like things more spicy than they do in California. When I got to California, I had to cut a lot of the heat out of what I was putting in the box. I think the first contest I cooked out there was Del Mar in 2018, and I probably burned 6 judges' mouths out with everything that I was turning in at that contest. It was hot. So that's probably the biggest thing, the biggest difference. But overall, like I'd say, generally things haven't really changed with what I'm cooking over the years. It's all pretty consistent. Minor tweaks here and there. When I came out to Tennessee, I did make some very minor changes based on kind of regional trends and taste preferences. And those things are easy to spot, right? Because everybody's got their sponsored rubs and their sponsored sauces and their banners outside. And so you pick up pretty quickly on who's cooking with what and who's finishing well. And so, I mean, just a minor swap in, if you got a 50-50 sauce mixture for your chicken, and you've got your base that you always use and that everyone else is using, and then you've got something else that you were using in another part of the country or I was using in California, and then you look around and you say, hey, everyone else is hanging a banner for something else, and you make that one little swap, that 50-50 mix, and boom, like that, it makes a difference. So pay attention to banners and things that people are hanging up outside their trailers when you go to these events.
Yeah, it makes a difference. I mean, it's good information for that. I mean, I'm sponsored by Heath Riles, and he's got a lot of banners on a lot of teams out there, and he's got some really good products.
Absolutely.
And like I said, you go over here, you find out like Atlanta Barbecue Store. They've got some good products, and you find out what's selling. And then in that area where our customers are, okay, this is what's consistent when whatever's selling. And that's kind of what you sometimes have to do. I remember years ago, I think it was Atlanta Barbecue Store, had it on there. I had a barbecue superstore. I can't remember which one it was, but it had a list of the top selling rubs. Remember that? One of those websites here, it would tell you what was the top selling rubs, top selling sauces. So you go on there every week and you can see it change. You can see, okay, now everybody's buying this one. Now everybody's buying this one. Now everybody's buying that one. And that was just wild. Somebody was kind of new getting into it to see just how much how much this stuff is going. Because when I first started, I was making my own rubs, making my own sauces. That's whenever I first got into it, because I didn't really know about all these, or I don't think they were out there that much about all these different lines of rubs and sauces.
Yeah.
I mean, Cimarron Doc, Smoke Guns Hot, and Blues Hog's been around forever. But outside of those, you kind of start head country come back onto the scene. And then some different teams. Then Heath Riles come onto the scene. Then some Eats come onto the scene. So just different stuff come on the scene later on. They kind of started expanding the market out there. And now there's a bunch of them out there. But when we were doing it, making our own, and we didn't know that all these other ones were out there. But what we learned then is just the consistency of how to make the
That's
rubs.
what it is. Yeah.
The consistency of the temperature of this piece of, if this rub here, this box has been open for 2 weeks longer than this box, the color's different, the flavor's different, all these pieces are different. And that it's just not economical to make your own stuff, but it's a good information to learn what's going to happen, learn how it's going to interact. More along the line for rubs and sauces. I think the sugar kind of just can overpower a lot of flaws in sauces as far as the minute things, but rubs is definitely a big deal in my opinion. So you cooking here in Tennessee area, and so a lot of people cook regionally. I know out here on the East Coast with me, everything I do 6 hours or more to go to a contest. It looks like. So what's your rule of thumb?
My rule of thumb is whatever I can fit into my kind of work, dad and husband schedule, right? Because as much as I love barbecue, it takes a backseat to those other things. And so whatever I can work into my schedule, I'm not afraid to drive 10 hours to go to a contest. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of music. I love to drive. So I'm happy to get in a car and drive as long as it takes for me to get somewhere. But also cooking in a new place, cooking at a new event so I can meet new people, go to visit a new place. Those are all things that play into my contest selection. I never look at price or like purse size. I never look at what teams are going to be there. I don't care about those things.
I look at trophies.
I like cool trophies. Yeah, I like cool trophies. I haven't been to Galax yet. I guess I got to go to Galax at some point.
I tell you what, Smoking Scully, son, he hadn't had a rib problem, he would have walked the dog in the entire world down there.
Yeah,
I feel bad for him with that, and praying for his family and stuff. But still, he had a heck of a cook. Yep. Like he said, they got some awesome trophies. But I'll chase trophies. I love cool trophies in there. But that being stated, I'm going to BBQ. So BBQ's been a big enough prize spot that'd be a cool trophy in itself. You doing BBQ?
I am not. I think the next one I'm going to do is, I think it's Carrollton, Kentucky, 2 weeks before the Royal. I'm taking August off, and then I'll do one kind of tune up before the Royal, and then we'll head out to Kansas City.
Yeah. So you're going to Kansas City. Do you stay in the light side or dark side?
I don't know that there is a light and a dark anymore. Not like there really was before they moved it to the track. I think so I'm a little bit different than most that cook at the Royal. Everyone has their spot. I've cooked in a different location every year at the Royal. I don't cook in the same spot, which probably drives the organizers crazy. They probably hate seeing Mudville BBQ sign up for the contest because they know that I ask for a different spot every year. And it's always because I've had something different. Like I've had a new rig or a new trailer or bringing more people or less people. And so my size requirements aren't the same. And so I try to be, as much of a pain in the ass as it probably is for them to put me in a position. I try not to take more than what I need or try to cram myself into something that I know is going to be too small for me. So that's why I've always switched locations, but light side, dark side, it doesn't matter to me.
I know this year we're flying out there, so it's a different world for me. Just trying to get logistics, getting everything out there, and it's going to be flying from me and Michelle flying out there. It's a head scratcher.
Yeah.
But luckily, it's drums, and drums you can pretty much borrow those about anywhere you go anymore.
Yep.
That's one of the blessings to that. But so, how many states have you cooked in?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. Virginia, DC, Pennsylvania, Maryland, North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, Oregon, California, 11. And
Wow.
Kentucky coming up. Oh, Kansas, so 12. And Kentucky coming up, so it'll be 13.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Need to put Greenwood, South Carolina on your schedule next year.
Greenwood, South Carolina. All right, I'll look it up.
That's 90-some team contest.
Oh, wow.
The awards is a big fanfare show. They've been doing it for 20-some years. Probably biggest contest outside of DC on the East Coast right now.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun. Great contest. Definitely one of the big contests out there. But yeah, I love cooking the Southeast, but our goal is to cook in every state.
There you go.
So we're doing that. I think we'll do a few more, try to do some SCAs, kind of seeing what those turn out. Because I think they're kind of fun, just going there with a truck, the grill in the back, go cook it and go home. It's kind of got some appeal to it.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's the wildest contest you ever been to?
The wildest contest. DC is pretty out of control. I don't know if you've ever cooked that contest.
I have not.
I think the format has changed a little bit in the past couple of years, but when I cooked it, I think I cooked it 4 times. 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, 4 times. And back then you would do chicken and brisket turn in at 6 and 6:30 p.m. on Saturday, and you would do pork and rib turn in at 12 and 12:30 on Sunday, and then you would have on-site judging for pork and ribs at 1 and 1:30 on Sunday. You'd load in at Friday, sometimes not until midnight, depending on when, DC police could get the streets cleared out and all the, people setting up could get the fences and the power and everything going. So it's a wild weekend because it's such a whirlwind. Like, you're up late at night, Friday night setting up, and then you got to cook Saturday, you got to cook Sunday, you got to do awards, and then you got to get out of there. There's 100,000 people a day that come through that festival to visit and see everything and do everything that's part of the public component of the event. So a lot of people watching. I think 2 years in a row or 3 years in a row, we have had people walk into our cook site thinking we were a vendor or something, and so it's pretty wild. But that's a fun contest.
Yeah, I've heard it's been fun. Like you said, it's definitely a whirlwind. And I think cooking in a toy hauler, I don't know that I want to drive a toy hauler through downtown DC.
Yeah, every time we did it, we were in a pop up, so
yeah.
We didn't have to maneuver our trailer or our rigs in and out of some of those streets.
Yeah, I hear Charles kind of tell some of the stories, and I'm like, man, it's got to be nice, it's got to be awesome, but dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Just totally wild, just seeing all of that process in there. But I think it's an awesome contest. I think it's got an awesome cause. Like I said, the public involvement with it's really cool with that.
Can't beat the venue either. It's right on Pennsylvania Avenue. You got a perfect view of the Capitol, all the architecture in DC. Like, it's really amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I would love to do that, but I want to do that with a setup that I can set up. But I want to take a crew in there. I don't want to just do me, my wife. I want to kind of have a team in there, so you can because I think with that many people coming through there, you basically need a lot of just help.
Oh yeah, you need 2 people to run your box at least, because you got to have a blocker, and you got to have the guy with the box behind them, moving people out of the way.
And it's a very expensive contest, like Carrie's saying. It's not a cheap one to get into.
Yep.
Definitely not a cheap one to get into. Hey, real quick, everybody. Snake River Farms is giving us a 10% discount code. If you're watching the show, they sponsor this show tonight. Go to Snake River Farms, links down below, hit EliteBBQ 10, and you get 10% off anything you order on there. So make sure you check that out. And also, Thunder Works is doing a Christmas in July, but they got some really good sales going on. But they always got good sales going on with that. So you say you're doing Kentucky's your next contest.
Yep.
And is that the 15th of September? Is that right?
It's September 8th and 9th.
Okay, September 8th and 9th.
Yep.
Our next one's going to be Baxley, Georgia, down there in September 15th, and then I think we're going to end up signing up for.
Is that peaches? Peach something?
No, that one's in no.
Or is that August? Pigs and
That's
Peaches.
August. Yeah. Is in August. Is Pig and Peaches down in Georgia. We didn't get into that one, but man, it's gonna be hot in August in Georgia. But we're gonna do the Baxley contest. Derek Johnson's got out there. I think he's got a few more spots. Anybody wants to get in that contest? Baxley, Georgia. It's a great contest. Derek's done a good job. I'm gonna be there this year. Might take a little trailer. My big trailer's still up there in the mountains getting fixed. So I'm gonna try to carry it to the repair shop this week. I've had more fun with trailer issues than anybody can believe.
Knock on wood, I've been pretty lucky. I've had a couple, but nothing major.
Yeah, I think we got some major one on ours now, but it's been asking for it for a while. We need to go to do a truck and trailer pull Saturday night in Baxley. They say it's a lot of fun down there. They got a truck and tractor pull out there in the area next to the contest or near the contest. They say it's a lot of fun out there to go to Saturday night. We should be there. Tommy's got any sponsors you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I got a couple. So Mudville BBQ prime rubs and seasonings, obviously. And then they're not sponsors, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them because they make the best products out there. Big Papa Smokers, Blues Hog Sauces and Fuel, Gateway Drums, Snake River Farms. That's my go-to right there. That's the Murderer's Row.
Yeah. We got some awesome. We got Road Charcoal, we got Rec Tech, Atlanta Barbecue Store with Heath Riles. And who am I missing? Rec Tech. Anyhow, and Snake River Farms. So again, that's great sponsors. We got some awesome products out there. Check it out. Links down below. All the links to his page, his Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Make sure you follow him on social medias and check us out also. Again, appreciate y'all watching. Like and share this with your friends and family. If you got any questions, reach out to us. See y'all next time.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, sir.